Wayne Bertram Williams, the Atlanta Child Killer, a case of fiber and hair analysis by Damita J. Bridges, CRJ 627, Advanced Forensic Science, Professor Todd Johnson, May 20, 2017. Wayne Williams biography. Wayne Williams was a 22-year-old man who was a freelance music producer that was penned the Atlanta child serial murder after the Atlanta police and FBI were able to convict him for the murders of two young men. The evidence that was presented in the case against Wayne was 3 failed polygraph results, creating in Wayne being a primary suspect in the murders, over 35 different fibers found on the victims and in the Williams environment, expert testimony from Harold Detman that the fibers were a match to those found in carpet fibers retrieved from the green carpet in Williams' home. The findings of Larry Peterson that the trilobal-shaped carpet was rare and had to come from the Williams environment, one that was essential to the prosecution of Wayne Williams. This sparked the analysis of the hair fibers, and although communication with Detman and Peterson was limited, the match of the fibers sparked the full investigation of Wayne Williams. Wayne Williams victims. This is a photograph of all of the victims that Wayne Williams was accused of murdering. These murders occurred between 1979 and 1981. The chronological order of victims. Alfred Evans was the first victim of Wayne Williams. He was 13 years old. Yusuf Bell, 9 years old. Eric Middlebrooks, 14 years old. Christopher Richardson, 12 years old. Aaron Witch, 10 years old. Anthony Carter, 9 years old. Earl Terrell, 11 years old. Clifford Jones, 13 years old. Charles Stevens, 12 years old. Aaron Jackson, 9 years old. Patrick Roberts, 16 years old. Luby Jeter, 14 years old. Terry Pugh, 15 years old. And Patrick Baltazar, 11 years old. Curtis Walker, 13 years old. Jojo Bell, 15 years old. Timothy Hill, 13 years old. Eddie Duncan, 21 years old. Larry Rogers, 20 years old. Michael McIntosh, 23 years old. John Porter, 28 years old. And William Barrett, 17 years old. There are 3 open remaining cases. Edward Smith, 14 years old. Milton Harvey, 14 years old. Jeffrey Mathis, 10 years old. And convictions for murder were made on Wayne Williams for Nathaniel Carter, 28 years old, and Jimmy Ray Payne, 21 years old. Fiber evidence was found on the victims. And the fiber evidence that was found was fiber evidence, a yellow blanket in Williams' bedroom. Fiber evidence, a green carpet, Williams' home. Fiber evidence, violet and green bedspread, Williams' bedroom. Fiber evidence, blue rayon fibers, debris from Williams' home. Fiber evidence, trunk liner, 1978 Plymouth, family vehicle. Fiber evidence, carpet, 1973 Ford, family vehicle. Fiber evidence, carpet, 1970 Chevy, family vehicle. Hair evidence, Sheba, the German Shepherd dog, Williams family dog. Hair evidence, Wayne Williams scalp, found on Patrick Baltazar's. The fibers that connected all of the cases in the Wayne Williams case. There was fiber evidence connecting Williams to 12 additional murders that were brought up during his trial. Dog hairs that were found on all 12 of the victims. These fibers were analyzed and found to match Williams' family dog Sheba, which was a German Shepherd. Green fiber carpets, which with unique trilobal shape. These fibers connected all of the victims to each other and was especially noticed for its shape and color. These carpet fibers were found at each of the victims except Eric Middlebrook and Joseph Bell. Violet and green bedspread fibers from Wayne Williams' bed. These fibers were also found on all 12 of the victims, although the spread was not tested itself for fluid analysis. The only evidence collected were fibers. Yellow blanket fibers were found on 6 of the victims, matched to the blanket clippings that were taken from a blanket swatch that was taken from Wayne Williams' bedroom and analyzed. Importance of the evidence. The importance of each type of evidence is that all of the evidence that ties the case to Wayne Williams comes from the family's living environment. The odds that this much evidence from Wayne's environment could have transferred to all of the different victims is very high. Fiber evidence can be conclusive and can provide the type of material, color, manufactured, and even the year that the product was made. The fiber in Wayne Williams' case were found on enough of the victims that the FBI felt that they were able to close 22 cases. It was stated that over 35 different fibers from the Williams environment were found, which was an overwhelming evidence that these victims had come in contact with the Wayne Williams environment. Importance of evidence continue. The hair fibers collected from Wayne Williams that were inside Patrick Baltazar's shirt proved to be very important as new technology had emerged in 2010. This evidence was presented for DNA testing. This came back conclusive to be positive DNA match for Wayne Williams, but only determined a mitochondrial match, which being biological evidence, this evidence was preserved and analyzed using modern technology. DNA evidence in its use has become an exact science in the forensic world, and it provides solid evidence. The unethical exclusion of evidence arises in a case with Clifford Jones. Clifford Jones' case was a case where there was a young case had an additional eyewitness that actually saw Clifford be taken into a laundromat and raped by Jamie Brooks and Calvin Smith. The witnesses stated he was strangled, wrapped in a garbage bag, and dumped after being raped. There were other eyewitnesses who saw Jamie, who was later convicted of another rape. The police did not pursue these suspects. They had found green fibers similar to those in the Williams environment and placed that murder on him as a pattern killing. The techniques that were used to collect evidence. Evidence was collected in accordance to FBI standards outlined in Dedman 2017, which stated that the area around the victim and the victim will be thoroughly examined at the crime scene using a special light. Any evidence that is visible on the victim should be covered with clear tape. The body is wrapped in clean white sheets and transported to the morgue for an autopsy. Some of the bodies were severely decomposed, making this identification very hard. And at the scene, any trace evidence that is around a crime scene that may have the probability to the crime are also collected using tweezers and placed in a piece of paper or an envelope and sealed and tagged as evidence and immediately given to the crime laboratory so the chain of custody is not compromised. In the Wayne Williams home, debris was vacuumed for later examination. Swatches were removed from the violet and green bedspread. Hairs were taken from the family dog, and a swatch was taken from the interior and exterior carpet, as well as yellow blanket found under Wayne's bed. This was later placed on charts to be presented in the courtroom. Charts of fibers from the victims and the positive match on fibers collected were detailed in the courtroom by investigator Harold Dedman of the FBI Forensic Fiber Analysis Unit. Non-biological evidence is always reviewed under a microscope. A visual of the texture, shape, color should be examined and documented and should also be photographed. In this lab, you normally have a comparison microscope, a fluorescent microscope, a polarized light microscope, and a microspectrometer. One of the tests to determine what the fiber is will be the flame test. And this is a test that we conducted while we were learning, one of the labs that we conducted. Subjecting the fiber to different levels of heat and documenting their reaction, whether it burns to ash or turns into a hard substance. Biological samples such as hair, blood, saliva, and semen are also examined under a microscope. But added to this, toxicology tests and examinations are performed as well as DNA testing and blood typing. Digital technology is examined using modern day equipment such as computers and digitizers that enhance voice, handwriting, and video evidence. The current issue that has emerged relevant to this case is the use of DNA testing. When Wayne Williams was convicted, DNA testing and the use of computers, cell phones, and videos weren't available. DNA was unheard of. If this case had been 2017, much of the evidence, such as the polygraph and the lack of physical evidence, motive, and also the small amount of biological evidence, being the hair samples taken off of Patrick Baltazar and the family dog Sheba, could have been immediately analyzed for DNA. Wayne Williams has stood on his issue as a conspiracy and has appealed his case 9 times. Each one of these cases has been denied, although the Atlanta courts are divided. Justice George Smith wrote in his dissent that he did not agree with his other 6 counterparts, but would go on record to give his reasoning, but would not go on record to give his reasoning or what he thinks was involved because he cannot prove it. The deaths of 22 other victims remain unsolved. The FBI in the city of Atlanta connected all of their deaths to Wayne Williams because they believed that when Wayne was arrested, the killing stopped. The truth is that they did not stop. There was no pattern to the murders, although the 12 they tied to Wayne did have a pattern of strangulation. Not all of them were strangled. The case went cold after Wayne Williams was arrested and sentenced. There were 3 additional victims that fit the pattern, but their murders remain unsolved. The investigation into the murder of Clifford Jones may have found that Jamie Brooks, who was later convicted of rape, may have been abducting and killing kids, but no investigation relating to the murders was ever conducted to include him. Once fiber analysis connected the murder victims to Williams' environment, no further suspects were sought. It's still the belief of many other citizens of Atlanta that Wayne Williams is not the person that killed all of the children he was connected with killing. It is felt that there were more than one killer, and that the city of Atlanta and FBI politically convicted Wayne Williams. In conclusion, the conviction of Wayne Williams is not an often talked about topic in the news. No one cares any longer about the 22 other families that did not get closure. Today, modern forensics would allow DNA testing on each of the victims, giving conclusion to their cases and closure to their families. It is now too late to obtain the evidence that would be required to seek another suspect in any of these cases, as they have grown cold. What we must consider is did the evidence that the FBI and Atlanta Police Department proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Wayne Williams did murder Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Ray Payne without DNA and biological evidence connecting him to these victims? If it does not, why has all of his appeals failed? Is it ethical that the courts have buried the cases of 22 of the children that were murdered by connecting them to 2 murders which Wayne Williams had committed and never pursuing any suspects, although different eyewitnesses had descriptions of other suspects and nothing was ever pursued? Was Wayne Williams a political conspiracy to cover up a racial issue that was about to erupt in Atlanta? All of these questions remain unanswered, as does the question of who really killed these children in Atlanta.